Most people first discovered Prince of Persia through the movie, but what most don't know is that the film only told the beginning of the story. The real story unfolded in the games. Today we're diving back into the original trilogy, The Sands of Time, Warrior Within, and The Two Thrones. This is the true ending of Prince of Persia. Not the one we saw on the big screen, but the one we lived through every battle, every twist of fate, and every choice that shaped his destiny. The story begins with the Prince of Persia himself, telling us how everything went terribly wrong. He and his father, King Shahriman, were on their way to Azad, passing through the lands of India. Along the way, they formed an alliance with the vizier of the Maharaja, a powerful Indian ruler, who made them an irresistible offer. If they helped him conquer his own palace, they could keep whatever treasures they found inside. The king agreed, unaware that he was being deceived. During the raid, the prince, eager to impress his father, ventured deep into the palace ruins and stumbled upon a glowing dagger. As soon as he grabbed it, a massive rock came crashing down. But then, time itself rewound, and the rock lifted back into place. That's when he realized the dagger had the power to control time, as long as it contained sand. Proud of his discovery, the prince returned to his father and showed him the dagger. The king let him keep any treasure he wanted, except for the enormous hourglass of time, which would be presented as a gift to the Sultan. Meanwhile, Farah, the Maharaja's daughter, watched everything from the shadows until she was captured. The group continued their journey to Azad and presented the hourglass to the Sultan. But the vizier revealed his true intentions. Only the prince could unleash the sands of time using the dagger. When the prince approached the hourglass to do so, Farah tried to stop him, but it was too late. The sands burst free, and with a powerful spell, the vizier turned the king and his entire army into monstrous creatures made of sand. Protected by the dagger, the prince managed to survive. From that moment, his desperate fight began. The prince was forced to battle his own soldiers, freeing their souls with the dagger. Along the way, he encountered mysterious pillars of light that whispered fragments of the future. Although he saw these visions, he ignored them. Soon he ran into Farah, who demanded he hand over the dagger. Distrustful, remembering the last person who asked for it, he refused. Before they could argue further, they were ambushed, and Farah fled. The prince chased after her and saw winged sand creatures carrying the hourglass up to the top of the Tower of Dawn. He realized the vizier was behind everything. On his way, he met a grumpy guard who helped him activate the palace's defense system, an ancient mechanism that quickly turned into a deadly trap. Once activated, the guard was killed off-screen by a sand monster. Back in the throne room, the prince found Farah battling the creatures. Amid the chaos, he came face to face with his father, now a sand monster. After a heartbreaking fight, the prince struck him down, with Farah helping him from a distance with her bow. When it was over, Farah tried to comfort him, but he pushed her away. Later, he awoke to find Farah trying to steal the dagger. He stopped her, and she changed her tone, speaking softly this time. She explained that the sands were spreading, and that she needed his help. The prince finally agreed to go to the tower where the hourglass was kept, allowing her to come along, as long as she didn't get in his way. Together they traversed the palace, fighting enemies and surviving traps. Though the journey felt endlessly long, they finally reached the treasure chamber. Farah told him to insert the dagger into the top of the hourglass to stop the sands. Just as he tried, an explosion threw them both into a dark tomb. The prince landed gracefully, catching Farah in his arms. She accused him of not trusting her, but then softened, telling him about a magical word said to open secret doors. Kakalukia. They said it together and escaped. As they continued their journey, the prince navigated through a deadly maze until he found Farah in a serene pool. They shared an intimate, dreamlike moment. But when he awoke, the dagger and his sword were gone. Only Farah's necklace remained. With no time to grieve, he grabbed a new weapon and climbed toward the top of the tower. There, he found Farah under attack. He fought desperately to save her, but it was too late. The vizier appeared once again, offering the prince immortality in exchange for the dagger. Heartbroken and guilt-ridden, the prince refused. He would rather die than live with what he'd done. In that moment, he decided to use the dagger to undo everything. He reversed time, returning to the very beginning, before the sands were unleashed. Sneaking into Farah's room, he told her everything that had happened. Though she didn't believe him, he gave her the dagger and begged for her help to prevent the catastrophe. The vizier appeared one final time, trying to kill the prince and claim the glory of saving Farah for himself. But this time, the prince was ready. He defeated the vizier and left the dagger in the Maharaja's treasure vault. As he turned to leave, Farah asked for his name. He smiled and whispered, "Call me Kakalukia." 7 long years have passed since the prince changed the course of time. Although he managed to undo the events of the first game, his victory came at a cost. Now he's hunted by the Dahaka, a relentless, shadowy beast sent to erase the anomaly he created. The prince is no longer the reckless youth he once was, the one who sought his father's approval. He's darker now, hardened by guilt, and haunted by the shadow of his fate. Desperate to escape his destiny, the prince sails to the legendary island of time, the very place where the sands were born. He believes that if he can prevent their creation, he can break the cycle and free himself from the Dahaka. But as soon as he arrives, his ship is ambushed by a deadly assassin named Shadi, sent by the Empress of Time to stop him from ever setting foot on the island. After a brutal battle, the prince survives, but he's left stranded, no weapons, no allies, and time itself working against him. As he explores the island, he discovers that it exists in 2 parallel timelines, the past and the present. Using mystical portals, the prince shifts between both eras to unlock paths, solve intricate puzzles, and face the creatures that guard the island. Along the way, he meets Kaylina, a mysterious woman who seems to know more about his journey than she should. She warns him that the Empress is destined to die by his hand, and that trying to change that fate will only unleash something far worse. But the prince refuses to surrender to destiny. Convinced he can still alter his path, he sets out to prevent the creation of the sands once and for all. To do so, he must activate 2 massive towers that power the island's central clock. Guided by Kaylina's words, he pushes forward, though her cryptic behavior leaves him uneasy. Despite his doubts, he chooses to trust her, until he uncovers the shocking truth. Kaylina is the Empress of Time. Forced to face his fate head-on, the prince battles her in a fierce duel and kills her, believing he has stopped the sands from ever being born. But when he returns to the present, horror strikes. It was his very act of killing Kaylina that gave birth to the sands of time. The cycle has come full circle. The Dahaka still hunts him. Defeated but not broken, the prince finds one last glimmer of hope. A mystical mask that turns him into the spectral prince, an alternate version of himself that can exist in the same timeline without creating a paradox. Using this power, he travels to the past once again with a new plan. Bring Kaylina into the present and kill her there. If the sands are created in another era, the timeline may finally be broken. The plan works. In the present, the prince confronts Kaylina one final time. This time, he defeats her without releasing the sands. The Dahaka appears, but instead of pursuing the prince, it claims Kaylina's body, fulfilling its duty as the guardian of time. The prince has done the impossible. He has finally changed his fate. After escaping the island of time, the prince returns to Babylon with Kaylina, believing he has finally escaped his fate. But instead of the glorious homecoming he imagined, he finds his city in ruins, burning and under siege by an unknown army. Before he can react, his ship is destroyed, Kaylina is captured, and the prince is thrown into yet another nightmare. The man behind it all is none other than the vizier, the same one the prince defeated in the first game. Now, after killing Kaylina, the vizier unleashes the sands of time once again, transforming himself into an immortal creature. In the chaos, the prince is struck by the sands' explosion and is infected by them, but this time, the effect isn't immediate. something starts to stir inside him. A voice begins whispering in his head. A crueler, more impulsive, more violent version of himself starts to take form. Thus, the Dark Prince is born. As he makes his way through the wreckage of Babylon, the prince wages war on two fronts, against the vizier's army, and against the darkness growing inside him. The Dark Prince isn't just a voice in his head. Sometimes he completely takes over, transforming the prince's body into a faster, deadlier, but unstable form. This duality becomes the core of his journey. Every transformation drains his life, forcing him to kill or absorb sand to survive. It's a dangerous power, intoxicating but deadly. In the midst of the chaos, Farah returns, the Princess of India, who once shared an adventure with the prince. She has also come to Babylon to stop the vizier, but she remembers nothing of what they experienced together since the prince rewrote time at the end of the first game. Even so, they form a fragile alliance. Farah is wiser now, stronger, and unafraid to challenge the prince's choices. He, in turn, tries to hide his corruption, fearing she'll reject him if she discovers what he's become. Together, they traverse the ravaged city, facing traps, enemies, and their own moral battles. Farah wants to help the innocent, to save lives. The prince, consumed by anger and guilt, only wants revenge against the vizier. Their opposing views create tension, but they also force the prince to reflect. Who does he really want to be? A warrior fighting for himself, or a leader who fights for his people? As they destroy the sand portals powering the vizier's army, the prince gains new abilities but faces deadlier foes. Monstrous generals twisted by the sands, responsible for Kalina's death. Each victory brings him closer to freeing Babylon, but also closer to losing himself to the Dark Prince. In one of the most painful moments, the prince discovers his father's lifeless body. The scene is brief, but devastating. There's no one left to impress, no one left to seek approval from, only himself, his city, and the choice of what kind of man he will become. His bond with Farah reaches a breaking point when she witnesses his dark transformation. Seeing the Dark Prince, she accuses him of lying, of giving in to the same power he once swore to destroy. He tries to explain, but she walks away, disappointed and heartbroken. The loss shakes him deeply, forcing him to face the monster within. In the final stretch, the prince battles Mahasti, one of the vizier's elite warriors, and frees the enslaved women of the palace. But by then, the damage is done. Farah sees him as a monster, and the prince begins to believe she's right. Yet at his lowest moment, when rage could easily consume him, the prince chooses differently. Instead of surrendering to the Dark Prince, he confronts him. In a powerful symbolic sequence, he enters his own mind and faces his darker half, not with violence, but with understanding. He acknowledges his pain, his guilt, his selfishness, and finally lets them go. When he awakens, the Dark Prince is gone. He has regained full control of himself. He's no longer the reckless boy from the first game, or the desperate fugitive from the second. He is a man who has learned to live with his scars. The final battle against the vizier is brutal. Now a winged, godlike creature, the vizier tries to annihilate what's left of Babylon. But the prince, with Farah's help, defeats him. In doing so, he releases the sands of time and restores peace to the city. In the closing scene, the prince reflects on everything he has lost and everything he's become. Farah, though still hurt, recognizes the change in him. He's no longer the man she once knew. He's something more. He's a man who faced his own darkness and chose to rise above it.